right, so welcome to this episode of Wax Pro UNCUT. I'm Rachael.
And I'm Erica.
And today we have Kelley Greene. Welcome, Kelley Greene.
Hi.
Good to see you.
You as well.
I'm so happy that you're here. This is so fun. It's been a while.
It has been a while.
So we all worked together at one of the large wax corporations that we cannot name. Is where we all met, right? And then I had some training with you after I had left. I had broken off onto my own boss salon, and I wanted to add lashes to my repertoire. Yeah. And so she trained me in that. I ended up hating doing lashes, but you were a great trainer in that.
Thank you.
It was good to see you then, but I haven't seen you in years, so I'm so glad that you're here with us.
Thank you.
But then, Erica, you hired Kelley, right?
I do remember. Yeah. I remember the first time I saw you, I was like, she's the most beautiful girl I've ever seen.
Oh my gosh.
Your eyebrows,
You're
out of
so
this world.
sweet.
No, I'm serious. I'm like, she's just like on point. I remember
Oh my
you from
gosh.
Chicago. I was like,
Yeah.
she's preppy. She knows retail. I was like, she's going to kill it.
She's got it going on.
specifically.
Thank
it was
you.
like a no-brainer. I think at the end of the first interview, I was like, you're hired.
I remember. You're like, I usually don't do this. But I was like, oh,
usually
really?
don't
That had
do
to make
this,
you feel
but-
good. You're like,
I was
okay,
oh.
I accept.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. It was like surreal, I think. That
You
like
had just moved to Phoenix?
I just moved to Phoenix, yeah.
So tell us about that evolution from Chicago, your schooling there, and then moving to Phoenix and working with us.
Because you went to aesthetics, right? Not cosmetology?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
an esthetician. I
And
went
you-
to school in Chicago.
In Chicago.
Oh my gosh. So I went to a large school.
What's it called? The school.
It's a good one.
It's a really good one. It's called Marichakochi University. So it's attached to the Marichakochi Day Spa and Salon in Chicago, and they're like very well known. My teacher, my aesthetics teacher, was actually a professional under their brand, and then decided to step away specifically because she saw the gap in education. So started in aesthetics as a teacher, and
Nice.
I happened to be in her class, and I feel like my education was very like all-encompassing. I felt very confident like leaving school and going out into the real world.
That's the first time
We've heard that, actually.
Yeah, that's
I know.
incredible. So shout out to that school, doing something right. But
For sure.
you hit on something major, which was your teacher even saw a gap in education, right? So she wanted to go and teach students how to do things the right way, right? So what do you think some gaps are in the education, the aesthetics education?
Ooh, I would say just comparing aesthetics in Chicago versus what I've experienced just amongst like employee peers here in Arizona. Just like the hands-on, I don't feel like is necessarily there. I felt like I got a lot of different exposure to different modalities, different companies, and branding. I was very trained in like product knowledge, retail. I sold product in school. Like we literally did retail competitions like in school to like propel our careers. And like I feel like for me, understanding that concept, just sales, and then being able to apply that then later into my career and like get paid for it, it wasn't like this big step. It was just like, okay, this is what we did in school, so it's being transferred into the workforce. It's so, like, it sounds stupid, but like common sense stuff, right? Like if you service someone, they need to be able to take care of themselves at home, or like at least be able to like maintain it. So it just makes sense to recommend product and understand
Why.
why. Like it's like
Right.
it's really just using your brain in a lot of ways. But I don't feel like there was that connection for a lot of estheticians. Yeah.
Okay, I have a question for both of you.
Yeah.
Because
Oh.
at some point, I was both of your guys' managers, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So I constantly ran into the challenge of employees that were like, well, I didn't go to school to sell retail. I don't want to sell retail. And like, I just knew all the like behind the door conversations about it, right?
Yeah.
What is the disconnect there?
I think that for a lot of people, like if you don't make the connection in your head of like why you're doing something, just to be told to do it can feel really like, well, why? like, I know by nature I'm a rebel. So, like, when you come in, you're like, well, you have to be here 15 minutes early. You have to do this. You have to do this. You have to do this. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Why? But, like, specific things that I knew were going to help me, that, like, I understood the logic behind, I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. But, I don't know.
I mean, I think in what you just said speaks volumes. You were taught how to do it. You had competitions in school.
Yeah.
Where I've openly talked about my school experience, and that was not there. We did not have like a sales.
Oh
there
my
was
gosh.
no part of like how to sell product. Why? Let's have product knowledge. Like here's why.
I don't think my
literally
school
fell
had
through the
product.
It's really hard to sell if you don't have it.
Oh my
So-
gosh. So I remember,
Right.
so we sold Reposage, and I love that line. It was a skincare line. We used it, we sold it. And then I'm like, okay, remembering, because it's like a decade ago, over a decade ago.
Honey, I'm like, I thought it was a little longer.
God, I forget I'm getting older. It's like, oh God, okay. So literally I won, what did I win? I won a Chi like flat iron for like a retail
those are
competition.
expensive.
And then like a Chi blow
were.
dryer. They were freaking expensive.
Yeah.
That had to have at least spend like over $200 worth of like
This
gifts.
is in school?
This was in school
Okay.
for like selling retail. Like they rewarded us, and like that concept I feel like is what is in the workplace, right? Like you're like trained to like think that way. Like, okay, if I do this, I'm gonna do this. That's sales, right? Like smart corporations, they reward you for selling their
But
product.
did
Yeah.
you stand? You stood behind. You said you liked the line.
I
You
loved
stood
it.
behind. So
I
how,
can sell something that I love. If I don't love it, I can't sell it. I'm gonna be
Okay,
like,
so
this
that
is
is
stupid.
my point. In
Yeah.
this big corporation, that the push was really hard, and we all knew the product was trash. Like there were a few products, right?
Yeah.
Like the brow stuff, fire. A couple of the exfoliators, fine.
Original wash, fire.
Yeah.
But then they revamped it. They put fragrance and everything, and it was shit. And then they
Well,
expected us. You
to sell it.
expected us.
It was me.
it.
It was me. I was
No,
the bad
but
guy.
obviously, like that was not just you. It was like there were sales goals.
I didn't make
all
the product.
over.
Okay,
I know.
I'll give you that.
I know.
I know.
But
if you don't
like,
believe in something,
that's even
though.
sugarcoating it because I didn't want to sell anyway. Like it could have been great, and I probably still would have sucked at it. But again, I didn't have the tools from the beginning to know how to sell. I didn't know how to sell. I didn't know how to like really confidently recommend a product to a client, and that is where it had fallen short in school. Like that wasn't my current job situation.
Right.
That was my training situation before school.
So I would say that like the business aspect of aesthetics is really, I think there's a huge disconnect. Even as like a solo, esthetician working in a corporation, you still have to understand that you are, this is funny, I remember this conversation that I had with one of the owners of the large corporation. She said something along the lines of like, you're an entrepreneur. So like you're literally like an entrepreneur within a larger company.
Entrepreneur.
Yes. And I was like, what is that word, right? And like, I was like, oh, I'm building my own business underneath an umbrella. And the beauty of that is like, you don't have the stress of like the overhead and everything else. You have tools that you can use and then apply it and grow.
And then clock out and go home.
Right. And then you don't have to think about it, right? But there's still like a self-starter mentality that has to be there. And I think a lot of people go to school, they might miss that part, and then they're like, oh, well, it doesn't work, or I can't get a job. It's like you have to really almost just absorb and like step up and execute in some sort of way. You can't just show up. It's not like
That's right.
it's not like a normal job. It's very much like you have to have a level of like drive, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you were in beauty school, did you know what you wanted to specialize in when you graduated? Like, did you know exactly what you were going to do? Or you're like, I'm going to get this license and then I'll figure it out?
Yeah, I knew that I wanted to do aesthetics. I was considering like art school. I was like between art school and beauty school. And I was in my orientation for art school. I dropped out of the same art school as Kanye West, by the way.
Wow.
Okay.
Fun fact.
Yeah, weird fact. And I was like, this is not for me. Like, I just knew I was in the orientation. They're like, you literally have to live, sleep, breathe art. Like, the people that are successful are the ones that like aren't partying. They're literally just doing their art. I was like, I'm not there. That's not me. Like,
I still want to party.
Well, that, and then I like found out I was pregnant. So I was like, okay, like what am I gonna do? Like, obviously art is not a sustainable career for like a young mom. And I had a good relationship with my esthetician, and she seemed happy. And I was like, well, that's kind of cool. Like, I just looked into it, and I remember there were a ton of jobs on Craigslist back in the day for estheticians, and I was like, oh, I'll just go
There's
get
a job
licensed.
market. Great, I'll get a job. Yes.
Yeah, our viewers are like, what's Craigslist?
It still exists.
It does exist.
I was just like in this rabbit hole online. I remember I was like sitting on my couch, and I just was like going through all this stuff, and I was like, oh, aesthetic school. And then the timing aligned with like my pregnancy, when she was due. Everything just made sense. I felt really good with my company. And then after I left, I think I just wanted to get a job. So I briefly worked for, I would say, like
In Chicago.
in Chicago. Yeah, I was in the suburbs. So like if you can think like maybe like Scottsdale-ish equivalent in Chicago. This lady had no idea what she was doing. She wasn't licensed. It was a shit show. It was it was beautiful. Like
So she was an owner of a
she
salon?
was an owner of
Okay.
a salon. Didn't know what she was doing. This is a crazy story. I had like a bridal party I was doing facials on with another esthetician, and in my head I was like, the way they operate is just so like messy in comparison to like what I was used to, and I was like, this just doesn't feel right. And then halfway through a facial, my steamer, which thank God I had facing away from my client, just started projectile, like spewing hot steam on the wall.
Was it the bride?
No, I don't remember. And I had to like rip the freaking like cord from like the
Outlet.
and I was like, oh my God, this is insane. And I just like stepped out. I was like, this is not safe. Like,
No.
I was like, this is so not safe. I can't do it, because I think what happened, they weren't using distilled water. They were using like regular water, like
the mineral buildup, and
it just like malfunctioned. I was like, that was probably one of the scariest moments in my career. And I quit, and I was like, I'm not doing this. And then
You moved to Phoenix? When did you move to Phoenix?
I know.
How long were you in Chicago?
I think I spent a year, or Avella was 10 months when we moved.
Okay.
So I had about, let's call it 6 months of aesthetics career in Chicago. I got hired for the same company that owned my beauty school.
Okay.
So I applied. That was a really prestigious position.
In Phoenix.
In Chicago.
Still not in Phoenix,
Not in
Rachel.
We're
Phoenix.
gonna make it to Phoenix.
I know. And like that company, it was like a 6-week training program, and it literally felt like I was just like playing. It didn't feel like real work, but it was real work. We got to like exchange services on each other. We got to know the entire menu, like by heart. We had all of these different reps that would like come out and literally like teach us on their product line. They gifted us.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like,
I'm so jealous right now.
I know.
Well, I
They
wish I had
literally
that.
gifted us like a set of their products, so we knew what we were selling.
Right,
and
right.
like, I thought that was like the standard. So I went from like crazy to like this like point where I was like, oh, this is great. Like, this is my dream job. Started servicing clients. Is really good.
So I went from school to Crazy Lady Salon that you quit.
Yep.
Got hired at the school's
Parent
Spa.
company,
Parent
essentially.
company.
Yeah.
and that was like super legit.
That was super legit. And I remember feeling super young, because I was 19.
my
I was
gosh.
working alongside like 30, 40-year-olds
That had been there forever.
for a long time. I would say the industry, especially in Chicago, was very Eastern European, like very traditional.
And that's kind of hard to go up against, because when you think of like
Hell
the new
yeah.
facialists and stuff,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah.
And I come in and I'm like just bubbly.
Was it hard
and
to
young
get
and-
hired there? Like, was it hard to get in?
So yeah, it was. I mean, the group interview was at the Woodfield Mall, which, if you can imagine, like a huge fashion square. It was a big courtyard. We like all went in. It almost felt like like a modeling call almost for like a ton of fucking people.
Holy.
You made the cut.
I did make the cut, and it was a 3-part interview. And I remember I was like, oh, and I just like kept going through the cycle, and I was like, well, this is cool. And then I got a call, and they're like, you got it. And I was like, what?
Were you so excited?
I was super excited.
So you were pregnant at this time?
No, I had Avella.
Okay,
So I was
okay.
pregnant through beauty school, took off about like a couple months, and then I started working.
Okay.
And then why did you leave there?
I know.
I know. I'm like, where's the catalyst that it all?
Right?
So you're talking about this is amazing.
This is the best job.
I left my dream job that I worked so hard for a boy. I like followed him clear across state lines. We literally drove. Yeah. It was supposed to be a temporary situation. He was supposed to come out here to go to school, and we were gonna go back. And
Fucking lied.
I know.
Liar, pants on fire.
Well, you didn't know at the time.
I didn't know, but
Okay, so
Yeah.
this was
What year?
2012.
Oh my gosh, was it that long ago?
Yeah, 12 years ago.
okay. So move here for
I
the
know.
guy.
Yes.
The guy you were together for a while.
Yeah, he was my kid's father.
Okay, I didn't want to ask that.
Baby
was
daddy.
this-
I
okay,
hate
okay,
that.
okay.
I hate
yes,
that term.
it was your baby daddy.
My kid's
Okay,
father.
but he never lived in Chicago. Like how?
Yeah, so
like how did
that's-
you get
I know.
pregnant? Where? How did this happen? How did it happen?
Miraculous conception. No, yeah, so we both were from suburbs in Chicago.
Oh, he's from there.
Yeah.
Okay.
You guys met there,
We met in Chicago.
made the baby there.
right after I turned 18.
Came over.
And then was he there when she was born, or he was here already?
No, he was home. He
Okay.
was in Chicago. We were together. I was working, and then he like wanted to become. It sounds crazy, but he wanted to become a phlebotomist, and like his dad had like military affiliation
Here?
I think here. So his schooling would have been covered if he did it here.
If he came here.
I think I
Okay.
don't even know.
It's just
I was
not
like,
time ago. That's okay.
Yeah, it
That's-
doesn't
that's
matter. We
fine.
can,
No,
we
it
can
really
cut
doesn't
all.
matter.
These are like granule details.
Well,
of,
like,
like,
back up for like
I
how
know.
did Kelley
Back to
Greene
Kelley. Back to
get
Kelley.
to Phoenix?
I know.
What was it?
I followed a boy.
How did Kelley Greene get to Phoenix?
Where in the world is Kelley Greene? Well, Chicago for most of it.
Oh my god.
So you come here. You get was the corporation that we cannot name.
Yeah.
The first place you applied, did you
Yeah,
like,
so
apply other
I
places?
thought it was gonna be a seamless move. I like fell in love with my dream job,
Okay.
and then I realized there was a sister company,
Okay.
which I can name because they're no longer in existence. I never even worked for them, but the Red Door Spa.
Okay. When you were
Elizabeth
talking,
Arden.
yes, okay,
Yeah.
that's what it sounded like.
Yeah.
It's like hard to get in,
Yeah.
prestigious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're a
Right,
sister
they
com-
were like big time.
Legit.
For
Huge.
we
Long
were
time.
estheticians
Yeah.
early on. That was like
That
where
was,
you wanted to
yeah,
work.
where you would
Yeah.
really try to get in.
Yeah, so I came here. I remember it was like Valentine's Day. I like flew in and I felt all like, you know, special because it was like, oh my god,
A day of love.
Romantic.
Wait, you know, Valentine's Day is Arizona's like anniversary too.
What?
Do you know that?
Yes.
Yeah, fun
That's my
fact.
mom's birthday.
Really?
Yeah, and she's a
Wow.
twin. So my mom, and my uncle.
What?
We're born on a
Never
love
knew
day.
that.
I know.
Shout out.
I know.
to you guys.
So I totally thought I had a job here in Arizona, which is why I moved across the country for this boy. 'Cause
You were solid.
I'm not stupid, you know. Yeah, so I got the job. I interviewed at the Red Door. I remember I had lunch by myself on the patio at Zimburger.
Yeah.
This is very romantic.
Right?
Right.
And I remember it was like an ahi tuna salad. I was sitting in the fucking Biltmore. And I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be.
Wow. Oh, honey.
Like, and this is where it all fell apart.
It's just like I'll be laughing
God.
more because like, I think of so many moments like that in my life where like, yeah, and then it's
made
like,
it.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
It's so funny. So then I got the job and I was like, okay, cool, like moved across country. But then what it came down to was like reciprocity and like transferring my license.
Oh yeah, that little thing.
I was like, oh, it shouldn't take that long. But no, I think Arizona back then, it was like almost a month. And
Like, did you apply for reciprocity before you left Chicago?
Yeah, but like she she really needed someone like then and there.
Oh, so she didn't want to wait for you.
She didn't want to wait for
The
me.
hiring manager at Red Door.
The hiring manager
Okay.
at Red Door. Knowing like the logistics of everything that I was doing, like I feel like, I mean, everything happens for a reason. I wouldn't have met you guys if
Or
I got the job,
ended
right?
up here.
You wouldn't
Yeah.
have gone through all the fun times.
Yeah.
Right. The things that like develop you into like who you are. So, I mean, I moved, thought I had a job. I got here, didn't have a job, and then I like just had to figure it out. And I was looking at all of these different places, and oh shit.
That's okay. We'll bleep it
It's all
right out.
good.
This company was like everywhere hiring, and I was like, well, let me just apply. But I was really actually kind of
Skeptical.
skeptical
As
because
you should have been.
yeah, this free brow wax. I was like, what company?
It's like
would,
when you look back now, there were signs, there were red
I'm
flags
like,
of
what
like,
company would give away a brow wax? And then, I mean, now I understand it's like a marketing thing. A lot of companies give away
Totally.
like a free thing just to, let
Not
you
us,
try
baby.
it.
Not us.
I know. When
now.
you're small,
Free.
You can't. You can't.
Where,
You
honey?
can't do it. But yeah, I know, like, oh gosh, I forget what underwear line, but there is an underwear line. They send you free panties, and like literally, you can just like try their product, and you're like your face, you're like free.
Wouldn't know. Don't wear them, so.
Oh
I
my
don't know if
God.
we should play that, but it's okay.
It's okay.
I
It's
always
okay.
expose too much in these episodes.
So yeah, I thought I had this job, came here, interviewed, met Erica, and I was like, oh, it's okay. I was like, everything's
She's
gonna be
normal.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
It really
So
was
you
surreal.
thought.
I
well,
know.
and it was. It was like no matter how much we can talk about it or criticize the experience that we all had, like it served a purpose in our lives for the time
For
being.
sure.
Like it
I
became
learned
us all.
so much.
I learned more. It
So
made me the
much.
waxer that I am.
Yeah.
I rose the ranks. I became the best waxer I could possibly
Right.
be. Taught me how to build my own business, how to
Yeah.
like gather the following, like client
Yeah.
interrelationship, like
Yeah.
all of that matters. But
For sure.
just I feel like we all had a point where we're like, my time here has expired and I've been here
You
too long.
outgrow.
You outgrow it.
You
and
outgrow it.
Like for me especially, I stayed too long, but it was so comfortable. And I made, you know, I was like the top wax or whatever, but like
Yeah.
had the best schedule.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I don't want to go find that somewhere else, or it just
I
feels
know.
hard to go do your own
Starting
thing.
over is
It's
always
really
scary.
hard. Yes, no matter what it is.
It doesn't matter what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
But
So okay, so how long did you work for? Were you with the company that we won't name?
excuse me, oh my god. Indigestion. It's getting old.
It's the company. It's coming back up. It's the trauma.
That's so great. It comes out physically.
Oh my god.
She's gonna break out in hives in a second. We're going to talk about it.
No, I really do.
Oh wait. So yeah. So how long?
How long was I with
Yeah.
that company? Gosh, okay, so it's 2013. I think I left what, like 14? I think
there 2 years.
I felt like you were there for so much
15 maybe? I think it might have been 15.
Okay.
Okay, so-
So I know I was working for another company in 15 for sure. Like essentially their competitor.
Okay, yeah.
So I was doing hard wax, right? And then I had to learn how to do strip wax. So it was all soft wax. I was like, this shit's crazy. But I loved the experience there too. And then after that, I worked for a couple like smaller, like one was like owned by a couple, so they were like, you know, private
franchise,
owners.
or-
No, they weren't a franchise.
Okay.
They are currently franchising.
But they weren't at the time.
Yeah. But again, the owner wasn't licensed, but she was the one that was training people, and I had an
So
issue with that,
interesting.
which is
That
why I
happens
left.
so much.
I'm like, you can't do that. So like, I really had an issue. So European Wax, good training program. You were my trainer. I felt like I got what I needed.
Did not know that.
The last company, the last company, or the company following that, amazing training program. So much so that I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm done doing models. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to get paid. But they had a really comprehensive training program. It was great. And then to go to a place where the owner was then training a service sugaring that she wasn't licensed. I think once I found that, I lost respect for it,
100%.
especially because
it's illegal.
yeah, it's illegal. I signed a contract saying that, like, I would pay $600 if I left this company within a year, right? So that was my training
so
program.
weird.
Well, I will say this,
Yeah.
because I've been on the management side
I
implementing
respect it.
the contracts. So I get both sides.
I
But
do.
It's definitely a retention strategy, because now that we've employed people,
Yeah.
you realize, holy shit, it's
Yeah.
so expensive to find a new person.
Yep.
And you give them all this training and free product and all
Right.
this stuff, and then they leave. So
Yeah.
it's like basically paying back. But at the same point, some people literally, like, it runs their whole lives, and they feel anxious and they feel scared and they never leave, and it becomes this
yeah.
crutch, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I get both sides, and I always
do.
like to talk about both sides of
I think
anything,
that's
good,
fair.
bad, or ugly, but
Absolutely.
pretty typical, and maybe this is good for our students to know, this is pretty typical when you go work for a company, is that they're gonna ask you to sign contracts that either they're gonna pay back training, or that there may be legal repercussions if you pursue their clientele that they spoon-fed you.
Yes, and that is something for sure. At the time as an employee, I didn't quite understand, but it's so different when you branch off from a large corporation that's spending, I mean, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in advertising.
Right.
So, like, they're going to be able to replenish you, right? You're just almost like just this, like, replaceable piece. But for a small business, and I now am a small business owner, having one of your top people walk away is like,
It can wreck
Detrimental.
you. Yeah.
it can absolutely wreck you. So I do see both sides.
Right.
I think that for me, I lost respect in the fact that I'm contracted to a training that is being performed by someone that isn't licensed.
Yeah.
I would respect it.
I
if-
feel like it should be null and void, frankly. I'm
100%.
sure
I agree.
legally it could have been.
I agree. I was a single mom at the time, but I just wasn't down with the fact that during the day, these other estheticians were performing services that they weren't able to complete. And I, would then pop in and finish these services because these girls aren't trained appropriately. And I'm like, okay, like, cool, I don't mind doing it, but I asked to be compensated as, like, a training manager. And I was told no. Like, they just wanted, me to stay in my space, which is fine. And I walked away at that point. I was like, okay, this is not going to be a good fit because I'm not going to continue to, I guess, stand behind a company that isn't properly training their people. And there's
Right,
that
takes
huge gap.
advantage of others.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
just felt yucky. So I left that company, worked for another company that I did both eyelash extensions and sugaring hair removal. It was a small business as well. It was a single owner. She had multiple locations, I think 4 here and then a couple in Seattle. Like, when you think Boss Babe, like, I think her, for sure. Like, badass.
Let's get her on our podcast.
Right. Again, there's pros and cons. I didn't understand at the time, like, why she was always so on edge. And, like, now I'm like, oh, I get it.
Fast forward, baby.
I know.
Like, makes all the sense in the
I
world.
know.
Yeah.
I remember this moment. She was, like, counting our tips because, like, she would cash us out, which is pretty cool. She would cash us out, like, a big portion of our tips weekly.
Oh, nice.
Like our, like, credit card tips, right? So we kind of got this little, like, weekly kickback. And she's, like, doing this stuff. And I went up to her and I went like that. And she's like, oh, my God. And I was like, oh, shit. Like, what did I do to you? Like, and just very on edge. There were a couple moments of, like, and I get it. I think that leadership is so hard, and I'm nowhere near where this woman is. So I have, like, the utmost grace now. At the time, it was really detrimental to me, but she emotionally couldn't contain her stress, and that was projected onto employees, and it happened to me 2 times. Then I found out it was happening to other girls that were in, like, this, like, training position. And I was like, okay, like, if this happens again, this is, like, not a healthy environment for me. Not only that, and I understand that pay has to be what it is, especially when you're building a business and you're scaling. But I could like barely pay my bills, and I was a single mom of like 2 kids, and like I felt like I was kind of living this facade of like, I mean, I did these like photo shoots, and I was like on the face of this brand, and I really got to see like the behind the scenes stuff, and like got exposed to, you know, different experiences through this woman, which was really cool, but I really felt like it was so out of reach. And I'm like, why? Like, there has to be something better. And I didn't feel like I was being taken care of, like, emotionally. So at that point, I was like, if this happens again, I'm going to start my own. And I did. And I thought that I was, like, really naive. I found a space that I could rent 3 days a week, like, perfect budget for me, like, exactly what I needed.
Is it the one I had been to before?
It was in Scottsdale. My first location was it was a small space in Scottsdale. I was a training manager for sugaring. So when I put in my notice, per my contract, it says 30 days. So I thought I had a full month to like get my shit together, right? So I'm like just kind of like slowly pulling things. I put in my notice. I let her know, like, hey, I'm going to be working for myself now, like, part-time. But I understand, like, you need to replace me. So I offered to continue to be her training manager. I wanted to be a brand ambassador because she has her own private labeled product. That's the only product that I ever used and only product that I knew. And she was like, I need your keys. I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah, let me give the audience. Let me give the audience a tip here.
Oh, yeah.
In this industry, if you put in notice, just know that's your last day.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone that keeps you longer, they're desperate. But I will tell you, I was cutthroat as hell.
Yeah.
You gave notice.
You have to be.
Perfect. By the time you left the parking lot, I would change your credentials to log in. You couldn't get access to nothing. And you were never coming back. So I hate that was me, but business is business. So just know that is going to happen if you put in notice 99% of the time. And rightfully so. Think about you.
Oh, yeah.
Employing someone. They're like, oh, I'm going to do my own thing. You're
I've
like, they're going to take all my clients.
No, I've done it. I for sure have done it. Right. So that employer, mind you, leading up to this, she had about 3 other girls walk away to start their own, and they had been with her for a really long time.
Trauma for her. She's like, oh no, not again. Right.
The first 3 really grew with her like years, and she offered basically what I was trying to ask for, but those girls said no to her. So at that point, it was like, she's like, I've only known this girl a year, like whatever. So that was really fine. But for sure, flip side, I hired someone that was actually a peer of mine at that same company. She started doing my lashes, and she was doing like mobile stuff for like the longest. And then I brought her on because it just made sense. She was like so burnt out from what she was doing. And then it got to the point where I'd say she had 50% of her clientele to start. And I think I probably gave her maybe about like 30 to 40% more clientele. And then at that point, she got to the point where she was like confident enough to do it on her own, right? And then she put in her notice, and I just was like, give me your key. Yeah.
So it's always full circle.
I still have this
Well, you're so nice. I can imagine it's hard for you.
Yeah, it's always full circle. It's like you see it, you know, from an employee perspective, and then being on the flip side of being an actual like business owner and understanding like what it took to like do that.
Yeah.
And like, I paid for my website, I paid for my brand. Like, there's like specific things that go into it.
Yeah, employees never understand how much money goes into branding, marketing, etc. You know,
to make them successful, which ultimately it makes the business successful. But there's 2 parts. There's like the technical labor of it, and then there's the back end. There's everything that goes into like getting that client even to the door. I had no idea like how tight of an operation we had. I mean, to be fully booked the way that we were is like, I don't even think those girls that are currently, operating that business, they probably don't have that same level of book that we did. Because it was the beginning, it was a pioneer movement.
Crazy operation.
Yeah.
And now there's so many options, right? Outside of that. Like for a long time
that was
all that was
the
on.
only brand. That was the only option.
So many people have left. Well, tell us about your brand now. Who are you?
know.
Who is Kelley Greene? Where are you're in Phoenix? You're in Central Phoenix. So what is your
I'm in
business?
Central Phoenix. I am off of 16th and Bethany. So I'm in Uptown.
Yeah.
In this
storefront.
Yes. It's actually so funny because I was with you when I saw the signage. So we were working on that other project.
Yeah.
And I think that was like our last meeting. Things were so crazy.
The light?
And I saw a sign for rent and I was like, let me just check it.
Yeah. I remember you telling me the terms and conditions and I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, jump on it.
Unheard of.
It was incredible.
Unheard of.
Yeah.
I got so fortunate. I had to do a whole gutting remodel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great location.
Yeah.
And what do you do now?
Now I really just combined everything that I picked up in pretty much every
facet
of the industry. I think I'm a little different. I think a lot of people really focus on one niche. I left doing lashes. That was the last thing I did. Lashes and sugaring, but primarily lashes. So I do eyelash extensions. I do sugaring hair removal, skincare, brow waxing. I will only wax the face. Body contouring is something new that I started within this last year, which has been really good. A lot of my clients love it. And then what else? Did I say skincare?
Yeah.
Skincare, yeah.
And what is the name of your business?
So my business is called Avella Beauty, and it was named after my daughter because without her life, I would not be in this industry.
No, you would not.
Yeah.
So
and then what
beautiful.
is your social media handle? Because we would like to add it
Yeah.
here. People would like to follow you.
Yeah, it's AvellaBeautyAZ.com.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a very
Awesome.
cute
Kelley, it was so good to learn about your full circle aesthetics experience, and thanks for coming on, and so proud of you.
It was so fun. Thank you so much.
Awesome. See you soon, guys.